Robert Plank Show, episode 92. Master free Google traffic and search engine optimization. 10 quick SEO ranking factors. Welcome back to the Robert Plank Show. My name is Robert Plank and my website is robertplank.com. So go ahead there right now, go to the sidebar and sign up for my email list. That way you can always get updates about this podcast, things I have to say, my products, all kinds of interesting things. My other website is wpimport.com, and that is a plugin that allows you to quickly import and backdate or drip out posts or pages, basically content of your blog. So we're going to talk today about ranking in search engines like Google, Yahoo, and Bing. And when I say ranking, I don't just mean ranking number one for whatever phrase that you want, but also ranking all over the place and ranking for high volume, high traffic keywords. So that way you don't just rank so you can have bragging rights. So that way, because sometimes some people will rank for phrases that are like 6 words long. Like someone might say, I rank for the best WordPress backup plugin in Albuquerque, New Mexico, when really only 10 people per month search that. So of course you rank number one for that. And then likewise, other people are upset that they're not ranked number one for the phrase membership sites. And I tell them, well, okay, first of all, if someone is searching for the phrase membership sites, you don't want to rank number one for that because you don't even know what someone who types in the word membership sites or the phrase membership sites really knows what they're looking for. But if someone is searching for WordPress membership site or membership site drip content, we know, okay, well, they're looking to make a membership site that they host. They're not looking for joining a membership site. They're not looking to join a gym, for example, and all these different things. So we're going to talk about a few specific things, but also some high level strategy. That way, in whatever year or decade you're listening and tuning into today's show, all this stuff about ranking high in Google and getting all this free search engine traffic will still make sense to you no matter what year you're listening to this. Henry Ford, maybe you've heard of him, says that failure is only the opportunity to begin again, only this time more wisely. So life is full of ups and downs. It's a series of ups and downs, and especially your internet marketing career and business is got to be full of ups and downs. So don't just give up if you hit one block in the road, or if you get Google slapped, Amazon slapped, Facebook slapped, whatever. The rules change all the time. Every 6 to 12 months, some huge major shift happens. Maybe you have to add some new thing to your website. Maybe you have to jump through one extra hoop in order to rank high on Facebook. Or maybe you have to jump through another extra hoop in order for your emails to get through. That's just the name of the game. And the way I always like to think about it is that I don't need to be super current. I don't need to read the news about whatever the latest Google update is every single week. But if I see that there is a thing that the powers that be want me to do, right? If the internet gods, and right now at the time that's Google and Facebook, if they want me to add a little something to my website, then I'll go ahead and add that if it gives me a little 5 or 10% boost, knowing that my competitors won't do it. Now we're in the 92nd episode, the 92nd podcast of the show, and I like that we made it this far because most of my competitors have already quit. I've seen so many other internet marketing podcasts say things like, I finally made it to episode number 10. I'm so tired. Well, tired, you need to be putting these things out more and more so that you can stay competitive and stay ahead of everyone else. So search engine optimization, ranking high on Google. A lot of people approach it the wrong way. They look for the loopholes, the superstitions, and they think back to, decades ago. We're talking 10, 20, 25 years ago when all the rage were these things called doorway pages. There was literally software that would crank out and generate and duplicate thousands of copies of one single web page because you could back then easily fool search engines like Google. Well, nowadays you kind of can't. Nowadays, even if there is a loophole, it's going to be closed in the next 2 days. So what makes more sense to me is to, instead of fighting Facebook and Google, look at what Facebook and Google want and then give them that thing that they want. And that makes a lot more sense to me because a lot of people, they stress out about H1 and H2 tags and meta tags, or things like duplicate content. They say that, well, information can only be in one site on the internet, even though it's kind of strange because the Associated Press Newswire, they syndicate news all over different sites, right? People on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, they retweet things. There's whole huge businesses like the Huffington Post where I mean, they're news aggregators. All they do is they report on news that other news outlets reported on. So duplicate content across the internet isn't that big of a deal. Now, if you put something out, if you put out some kind of an article or like a really good guest blog post or something, and you're the first one to put out that unique content, then Google will favor that slightly higher. But if that content is so good that that gets spread out on 20 or 50 different websites, those other websites will still get ranked, but just not quite as high as that original content. But when we're talking about duplicate content, I mean, right off the bat, the biggest myth with this thing called duplicate content is that, well, when we're talking about duplicate content, we're talking about the same article replicated on the same website, right? Because Google doesn't want you to have one blog post and you have 100 copies of you trying to game the system. They're only going to allow that website, that .com name, that domain name, one copy in their listings. But they're totally fine with you picking up, if you're allowed to, if you have that licensed content, if you're allowed to use that content, you're completely allowed to put it on your site. It's not duplicate content, although the original content will get favored slightly higher. So the point of that little anecdote, and the point of today's episode is to not stress out and not look so much at all the shortcuts and the hacks, but instead look for a good user experience. I got so frustrated once. I was at a seminar in Atlanta, Georgia, and someone who was on stage and he was selling some weird search engine software. It was some kind of thing that I guess analyzed your pages to see how well they'd rank or something like that. And he stressed out about having these things called H1 and H2 tags and title tags and meta keyword tags and meta description tags and stuff like that. And well, the reason why he got everyone overloaded and geeked out on these terms was because he was selling an SEO software. And I remember after, and the thing that really kind of pushed me over the edge and actually made me leave the event was that during lunchtime, I happened to be sitting at the same table as this person, and he said, well, you know, according to such and such, all I need to do for free traffic is just to have an optimized website. I just need to have, you know, some good H1 and H2 tags, some good on-page SEO, it's called. And if I just do that, then build it and they will come. I'll get all the traffic I want. And they say, well, that's not really what's going to happen. I mean, you can go and make a little blog post, but unless you send your own traffic, unless you send your list to it and you put it on Twitter and Facebook and have other people share it, it's not going to just get a bunch of traffic all on its own. And this person said, no, I don't think so. And I said, well, why do you say that? He said, well, because the person on stage told me so. So trust but verify. And I mean, if the person on stage is trying to sell you a piece of software that says, oh, you have an H1 tag, now you're great. Don't just trust because if someone says if your web pages are properly formatted, you'll get all the traffic you want. It's just not the case. The thing about free traffic is it is slow, but I think you still should be putting out a lot of free content because all these little things do add up. But just geeking out about your meta tags and things like that, if you know what those are, just that on its own is not going to do it. And I have 10 things that you can do on your website. And to be honest, I will be honest. I'm only doing about 7 out of the 10 just because there's only so many hours in a day. I'm actively working to add these extra things, and maybe you only have 5 out of these 10 things, and that's okay. I'm just going to list you what I think are the top 10 things that should be on your site in order to, like we said, be ranked highly for the key phrases you want, for the buying key phrases especially. For example, I would rather be ranked highly for a phrase like buy WordPress plugin, like BUY, right? Or WordPress plugin price, as are like our WordPress plugin low cost or something, as opposed to just WordPress plugin, right? Or backup plugin WordPress self-hosted, because now I know that someone is looking not just to, for example, back up the photos on their hard drive, but back up a WordPress site. And so we can do different things, and there are tools out there. Like a good one is the Google Keyword tool. So if you have an AdWords account, which you should, it's free. There's a little tab called the Google Keyword tool, and you can look up for the phrases of things that you want to rank for. So if we're thinking, okay, well, is manage WordPress websites, is that a good search phrase? We can type it in there, and they can show us how many searches those things get per month. And so if you try different searches, and if a search gets, only 10 or 20 people are looking for it every month, that's not really a great phrase to rank for. But then if you search something and it gets millions of searches per month, that's great, but then you'll have more competition. So that's kind of the name of the game. And then another important thing, as we're getting ramped up here, another important term for you is called keyword stuffing. All right, stuffing as in like Thanksgiving. And so what this means, and it sounds almost kind of sketchy, but it's not. It just means that if we're talking, for example, today about free traffic from Google, I'm going to mention the term search engine optimization. And even, if I'm talking about search engine optimization with WordPress, actually, I'm going to edit today's title, and I'm going to mention the term WordPress in the blog post for today's podcast, because I want when someone searches the phrase WordPress SEO or search engine optimization, I know I'm not going to rank super highly, but I want to be ranked somewhere in there. Now, on any search engine, right? Because guess what? A lot of these sites that give us traffic, whether we realize it or not, are search engines. Now, usually a search engine, we think of something like, Google, Yahoo, Bing. But guess what? This podcast, these audio episodes are on iTunes. They're also on Stitcher. So if I'm talking about, for example, if I'm doing a podcast and I'm talking about how to publish a book on Amazon, I'm going to put in the title terms like Kindle or CreateSpace or how to publish a book for free or how to self-publish. I don't want the title to be super long, but if I'm mentioning something like, for example, self-publishing, then how about I work into the title the actual terms like Amazon, Kindle, CreateSpace. If I'm talking about self-publishing a manual or a CD or a DVD, and in the episode I talk about services like, say, Kunaki or Lulu, then guess what? I'm going to mention the terms like Kunaki or Lulu in these title tags. So those two little strategies I'll give you for free even before we even get into the master list. Use that Google Keyword tool to look at what are the popular phrases people are already looking for and keyword stuff. And that doesn't mean to load up a big long blog post with 10 different phrases, but if you're mentioning self-publishing and the topic is Kindle, put Kindle into the title of your post, okay? So, I mean, the big picture idea here is to give people a good user experience, okay? That's what search engines want, any search engine. But let's focus on Google. So Google wants it so that if someone goes to Google and they type in what they want, they do a voice search or something like that, that the person finds what they're looking for very quickly. And sometimes you can and sometimes Google will even give the result without someone having to click into a search result. For example, did you know that if you type in Google the phrase countdown timer, they'll just give you a countdown timer right there on the page. If you put in Google how many ounces are in 1 gallon, you don't have to click on any site. They'll give you a calculator. They'll give you the answer right then and there. So Google is looking to give people the answer they were looking for in the shortest amount of time. And that means that if someone's looking for how to back up a WordPress blog or how to secure a WordPress blog, they click on your web page and they're given the answer that they want, okay? So this kind of relates to why maybe Google over the last few years they've decided that they don't want you to have a pop-up on your site as soon as someone clicks over from a Google result, or they for sure don't want an exit pop-up when they leave. Why is that? Because if someone looks for how to back up a WordPress blog, they click over and they don't find what they're looking for, they click back, a pop-up appears. Many people will think that, oh, that pop-up's from Google. We don't like that. Or sites like Google decided a few years ago that they don't want you to have an opt-in page or what's called a squeeze page or lead capture page. They don't want you to have that as soon as someone clicks over from a Google result. Now you can have an opt-in form as long as there's other content on that page, but they don't want it to be just a dead end. Why? Because if someone's looking for how to back up a WordPress blog, how to secure a WordPress blog, how to self-publish on Amazon, they click to your site and there's no content there, that is a bad user experience. And in more recent years, Google and all these search engines have made there's a bunch of factors, but the big ones are dwell time and human reviewers. So dwell time means that, and that's DWELL time, like if you dwell on something, they say that if I'm looking for how to tie a tie. Let me actually do that right now. If I search in Google, how to tie a tie, what comes up? Well, first of all, there's instructions right there on Google, so you don't have to click over. But there's ties.com, tieatie.net, so I guess you can look for different kind of ties. And there's a YouTube video, and I bet it has millions of views. 13 million views of a 1 minute 50-second video of a person, and you don't even see his face. He's just tying a tie on video right there in front of you. So if I'm looking for how to tie a tie, I click over and I don't go back. Like I don't hit the back button. Or well, okay, let me give you two things. I'm looking for how to tie a tie. I click over. I don't find what I want. I click back within 5 seconds. So. And I keep looking. So Google says, aha, they only spent 5 seconds on the page because they were on our site, they clicked off, they came back 5 seconds later. So that means that that is not a helpful website. Now, if someone clicks over on how to tie a tie and they stay there for 20 minutes, even if they come back, they say, okay, they dwelled on that site for 20 minutes, so that must be a helpful site. Or even better, if they click and never come back, well, then they found exactly what they were looking for the very first time. And the other thing about sites like Google as well is that they will send, they'll have whole call centers, and they'll have live humans from all around the world look on their computer screen at what it is you have on a web page. And if the site isn't helpful or doesn't have content, then those human reviewers will give you a low rating, which will hurt your search ranking. So all these different updates that have come about over the years, like Penguin or Hummingbird 3.0 or all these different things, are many times just them implementing these factors: dwell time, human reviewers, stuff like that. And so you could either drive yourself crazy trying to outsmart the system, or just give the system what they want. Give them helpful content and put out some consistent content, because even if your content sucks, or even if it's not quite what someone's looking for, guess what? As Henry Ford says, begin again, this time more wisely. And so my personal goal in anything, and I think I've already hit this goal, is to have about 300 topics on my blog. Now, why 300? Because if you have a blog about anything, self-publishing on Amazon, internet marketing, WordPress, if you say 300 different things on that, chances are that you're going to cover most subjects. Okay, so it looks like 342 blog posts at the current time on robertplank.com. So there are all kinds of subjects, from WordPress list building, whatever. There's some videos, some written stuff. So now I can confidently say that I cover most topics in internet marketing. So consistently put out content at least once a week. And in fact, these days, once a week sometimes isn't even enough. Promote it using Facebook and Twitter. And we also use tools such as eClincher to keep on tweeting on an infinite loop, and Zapier, so that if I post something on my blog, it automatically posts to Twitter and Facebook and my Facebook fan pages and all that stuff. Facebook, Twitter, eClincher, Zapier. And also, if some new content platform comes along, find a way to put it on your own website as well. So for example, even if you have a decent YouTube channel, right? You post videos on your YouTube channel, it can't hurt to, every time you post a video on that channel, to copy the copy and paste code that YouTube gives you and put it on your own site. That way, that's one more place where you're helping someone find the solution to a problem. And whatever platform is out, whatever platform is all the rage whenever you're listening to this, if it's webinars or Periscope Periscopes or Snapchat or Facebook Live or whatever. And it's one of these platforms where either it's hosted not on your site, or even worse, one of these platforms where it's only hosted temporarily. Save a copy and put it on your own site. So, for example, if you stream on Facebook Live or something, put a copy of that on your YouTube channel as well, and then embed that YouTube video on your own blog in addition, or put it on iTunes as a podcast. Or if you speak out or have video, get it transcribed and paste the transcript on your blog, or put it into a PDF document. But consistently put out lots of content, because the name of the game is being helpful and giving people the solution to the problem that they're seeking. And you might say, but I don't want to give everything away for free. Well, you don't have to. I mean, you can still sell your own courses and things like that. But in this day and age, if you don't give a lot of things away for free, that's still fine for you, but someone else is going to be getting that traffic. So without bumming you out a little bit, let me give you the 10 things you can do, the 10 quick fixes to your WordPress blog or to your website that you can apply probably this week, if not today, to give you a boost in search engine optimization. Now, number one is to use WordPress and a mobile theme. So I'm talking about WordPress, the self-hosted version. And by the way, you should own, if you can somehow own yourname.com, or if your blog has its own brand, right? So like if you have, like we have Membership Site Podcast, and I own membershipsitepodcast.com. We have a course called Membership Cube, and I own membershipcube.com. So own the .com, and that way you can toss a free WordPress blog on there. And what's great about WordPress is that you can just easily add some content, and a lot of the what are called themes or designs that they have are all pretty well optimized for search engines. But what you should do is install a plugin called WP Touch. WP Touch creates a mobile version of your WordPress blog. So you know how sometimes you go to a website on your computer and then you go and look at it on a small phone screen and it looks different, but it still looks okay on a phone, right? You don't have to zoom in. The text might be larger, or there might be less stuff on the page. Maybe it takes up the whole width of your phone. So that's a mobile optimized site. It looks like in one way on a computer screen, but it looks different on the phone, but it still looks okay in each one. So WP Touch, that's a free plugin that will give you a mobile WordPress site. So far, number one, use WordPress and a mobile theme. Number two, install these two plugins if you haven't already. The first one is called All-in-One SEO Pack. That's All-in-One SEO Pack. And Google XML Sitemaps. You don't even really have to know what these plugins do. Let's just say that these plugins make things go. Just kidding. So all-in-one SEO will basically give search engines the things that they're looking for. And so what you can do right now is go to a Google search, and I'm going to put in site, that's SITE, colon, and then the name of my site, like robertplank.com. And I can see a list of everything Google has of my site. Looks like we have 711 results because they index pages and categories and things like that. And the biggest bang for your buck from all-in-one SEO is that they make your descriptions look better. So like in a search, there's the listings, right? And there's the title, the URL, and then maybe like 2 lines of text about what's on that page. And all-in-one SEO kind of cleans up that text, and usually without it, this text might be listing the links on your sidebar. So it's really helpful if you have all-in-one SEO installed, and that'll kind of clean up your descriptions in those search results. Now, Google XML Sitemaps, what that does is it submits periodically a list of all your pages in Google to Google. That way, Google makes sure to have all of your content indexed. All right. Now, next, install a plugin called W3 Total Cache. That's CACHE for cash, not like cash in money, but cash is in like a cache of gold, right? W3 Total Cache. This makes your site run faster. This makes it so that every time someone comes to your website, it doesn't have to go and read files and load the database. And then it does a thing. If you don't know what this is fine. But it does a thing called it minifies JavaScript and CSS. So if you've ever looked at the code, if you ever like right clicked a web page and went to view source, looked at all the gobbledygook there, there's like the text on your page, but there's all these tags. There's this the look and feel and all this stuff. And so W3 total cache will compress all the files that your website calls, right? So like all the graphics and the look and feel and the colors and things, W3 total cache compresses them, and this shaves a few seconds off your load time and gives you a nice boost. If you can get your site down to about 2 seconds, that's awesome. And so I have a resource for you here. Go to Google and search for Google Page Speed Insights. All right, we're going to go there together. Google Page Speed Insights, and we go just to the very top result, and I'll put in my URL, and it will take a second to analyze it, and it will give me a checklist of things to correct. And then the other place I want you to go is tools.pingdom.com. That's TOOLS.pingdom.com. And what I like about Pingdom is they will give you a speed test of your site. And so it looks like my blog loads in about 3.31 seconds. So that's almost where I want it to be, but I would like it if it was a little faster and if it was about 2 seconds. If you can get under 2 seconds, you're doing awesome. And usually W3 Total Cache will do that. And what you can even do is run tools.pingdom.com and Page Speed Insights and see how fast your website loads, and then turn on the caching and then see how fast it is. And many times, I mean, I haven't been able to do this on all of my sites, but many times we've had sites that load 7 or 8 seconds, which is really slow in search engine terms, in SEO terms. Then installed a caching plugin, and the biggest bang for our buck was minifying the other files. And by doing that, we reduced it from 7 seconds to 2 seconds, which, what does that do? It gives users who click a faster user experience, and that's what Google optimizes for. So if they see that your website's load faster, you'll get a little bit of a bump. Because think about it. What if your site took 2 seconds to load? Let's time that. 1, 2. Okay, pretty fast. Not bad. Now I see the page. What if it took 7 seconds? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, in a freaking eternity. So W3 total cache, and then there's special things in the settings, and like to cache the database and the disk. But the biggest bang for your buck, you have to check these boxes specifically in the settings: minify JavaScript, minify CSS, then load Google Page Speed Insights in your browser, and tools.pingdom.com to see how your website matches up. Now, I know that we've kind of gotten into some technical stuff, and like that's to be expected. If you can either figure it out on your own, or maybe go and look on YouTube for how to do this, guess what? You search Google on how to speed up your site and how to use W3 Total Cache, find a YouTube video. Guess what? You're finding someone else's helpful content. So here's giving you a bit of a break. Buy 10 years of your domain name. Okay, so we recommend you go to namecheap.com to buy your own .com name. We really don't like you to buy like a .info or a .biz or a .xyz. Most serious sites on the internet are .com websites. So the next thing is that, well, okay, you go and you buy that, and on Namecheap, I think it's about $9 or $10 to buy a .com name. You go, spend your $10, cool, now you have a .com name. But all these websites want you to have a long-term business, a long-term web presence. So what does that mean? Well, that means that if you can go and buy multiple years in advance, right? So instead of just paying $10 one time, and then today in a year, if you don't pay another $10, you'll lose that .com name. You go and you buy the most number of years you can buy, and usually that's 9 or 10 years. So if you already bought a .com name and you already own 1 year, it's usually pretty easy to log back into your domain registrar and go ahead and buy 9 more years for $90. And you might say, okay, well, I don't know if I want to spend 90 bucks. Well, I'm not saying to buy 10 years worth of domain names on every single one of your sites, but if there's a site that you plan on having for the rest of your life or the rest of your internet career, then go ahead and buy those extra 9 years because you'll get a slight boost. And sites like Google will say, okay, great, this domain name is registered 9 years in advance, so we're going to take that one a little more seriously. Number 5, and this is getting a little technical, but that's okay. Search for Google Webmaster Tools. Okay, I'll do it with you. Google Webmaster Tools. And what you do here is the very first section for me is called the Google Search. Let's see, there's the Google Search Console. And it looks like I have a few sites there, but I forgot to submit my blog. So I'll do that after this podcast. So there you go. So I have a lot of these steps in the checklist, but not all. So Google Webmaster Tools. And so you can basically claim the sites that are your own. And what you do is you go and at the moment, the button is called Add a Property. And you can just say, okay, well, my website is robertplank.com. And then, as part of that, you have to verify that you own it. And they'll say, upload this special file into your site. And after you've done that, then they'll say, okay, great, you've uploaded that special file, and now you've proven that you own it. And Google wants, they want to have as much information about you and your site as possible. So they want to know what sites you own. And then there's all these little tools, and they're always kind of changing it around. But there's kind of interesting tools where you can get a list of all of the pages of the site that they've crawled. You can view your site the way that they view it. You can see if they've blocked any of your site, or the last time they've indexed it, or problems with it, stuff like that. But just by having it in here gives you a little bit of a boost. And if you also know of a service or a tool called Google Analytics, you can sign up there as well, and they'll give you a little bit of tracking code to add to your website. So kind of two tools in one there. Google Webmaster Tools, where you can verify the list of sites you own, and then Google Analytics code, where you can put a little piece of code on your website and they'll give you all kinds of information. They'll tell you how many people are on your website right now. They'll tell you how long they stay on your website. They'll tell you what countries they come in from. And this is one of those things where, as far as I've read, so like I'll look at every now and then blog posts by a guy named Matt Cutts. I'll look at some of his videos and things. He's pretty much like the face of search engine optimization on Google. And from what I've been able to kind of understand, because the rules always change, but from what I've been able to understand is that the more information about your site Google has, the better, right? So if you add the special code on your site and Google sees that the average person who comes to your site looks like the average person goes to 2 pages on our site, at least on our backupcreator.com site. They see that they stay on our site for about 2 minutes. So if we can get those numbers as high as we possibly can, then that's better, right? And if we can see that, well, maybe the average person on our site stays 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, then that is the more information that Google has, and they can kind of give us a little bit of a bump there. And even if you want to get really advanced, Google Analytics allows you to track your sales, right? And I'm not going to go into all this, but you can basically track in Google Analytics how well your products are selling. And then if Google sees that, well, your products are converting really well, the rumor is, or the general understanding is, you'll get a little bit of a boost here. So the whole name of the game today is to get all these little boosts that add up to a lot. Okay, so recapping so far, the first 5 out of 10, use WordPress and a theme that's mobile friendly. So then, load your website on a phone. And if it's not mobile friendly, install a plugin called WP Touch. Number 2, install plugins called All-in-One SEO Pack and Google XML Sitemaps. Number 3, install a plugin called W3 Total Cache and be sure to enable the minification or minify JavaScript and CSS, and then use tools Google Page Speed Insights and tools.pingdom.com to see how quickly your websites load. And these tools, even if your website loads slowly, they'll show you where you can pick up some speed by making a few corrections. Number 4, make sure that you own 10 years on the domain name that you want to increase in a ranking for. So not on every site, but on a site where you have a blog and free content and you're home on the web. Like if you own yourname.com, like robertplank.com, I own 10 years on that domain. Number 5, verify the site with Google Webmaster Tools and on Google Analytics, and add the code that they give you. And there's actually a special plugin for Google Analytics you can install in WordPress and put the code on there, and that way Google has more information about your site. All right, number 6, kind of going back into technical territory. You might have to hire someone for this, but it's worth it. Buy an SSL certificate and redirect the site to 100% forced SSL. Now, what the heck is SSL? It means it's a secure site. So I'll give you an example here. Go to facebook.com. You go to facebook.com, and there should be like a little lock symbol on your web browser, and depending on what browser you use, it should show that the full web address. You know how usually web addresses are like http://? Well, on Facebook at least, the web address is https. And a lot of people, a lot of really important people are trying to get every website on the internet to be secure or SSL or HTTPS. These all mean the same thing. And it basically means that it's encrypted. It's a secure connection and things like that. And so if you can handle it, if you have the tech team to do this, make it so that your entire site not only can run on HTTPS, but when someone just types in just the web address, no HTTP anything, it redirects to HTTPS. And there's been all these rumors and rules coming out and things like that, that if your site is fully secure, fully HTTPS, then you'll get a little bit of a ranking there as well. So if that's too much over your head, that's fine. You can skip that one, but that's another one of these boosts out of these 10 small boosts. Now, next is to have links to legal pages at the bottom of every page. And so even if you go to, well, let's say facebook.com, that might be a bad example because I need to find like their about page. How about this? I'm on a Okay, I can go to facebook.com/about, scroll to the bottom, and they have links for data policy, terms and policies, cookies. I can go to google.com, and even though these web pages have very little on them, on the bottom I'm seeing that they have a link for privacy and for terms. So at some point, websites like Google decided that they want every website to list their terms of service, and you can get some like boilerplate generator things. Like if you Google search privacy policy website generator, you can get one made for free. I think that you might be able to buy some as well, but they want you to have a web page on your site that explains the terms and conditions of your site, so like people can't copy your site or things like that. And they want to know your privacy policy, which means that, do you store cookies on someone's site or someone's computer? Do you collect customer information if they pay you money, things like that. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a plug here, papertemplate.com. This is a WordPress plugin where you can create landing pages that are independent of the theme or the design of your WordPress. That you can just make a landing page anywhere you want. And Paper Template has built-in terms pages, legal pages for terms and conditions, for privacy policy, and then if you're selling anything, an earnings disclaimer. So that way, if you say I make $10,000 a month, you're not guaranteeing that somebody coming to your site will also make that money. So papertemplate.com is a great way to add some quick legal pages at the bottom of your webpage. And it seems kind of silly, but Google has flat out said that if you have terms and conditions and privacy policy pages on your site, that you will get a little bit higher ranking than someone who doesn't. Now, the next thing, number 8, is add a physical mailing address and a phone number at the bottom of every page. Even if the mailing address is just a PO box, guess what? You can let's say you have a mailbox at like a mailboxes etc. UPS store, right? You don't have to have PO box. If your address is blah 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 Main Street, PO Box 500, you can put Suite 500, SUITE, Suite 500, and then that way it looks like you might have an office even though you just have a PO box. Now, Google has a free service called Google Voice. That's google.com/voice. And they'll give you a free phone number. You don't have to have like a toll free number, but they'll give you a free phone number and you can choose what area code and you can choose from a list and pick out the exact phone number you want. And what's great about this is that you can do a number of things. First of all, if someone calls this phone number, you can have it forward to your phone if you want. And this is a great way because, well, you can allow people to call you, but you're not exposing your actual phone number. You can redirect this number to an assistant later on if you want. And even if you don't do any of those things, then if someone calls you and leaves a voicemail, then you'll get an email. And there's actually an area where you can log in and see a list of all your voicemails and play those right in your web browser or on the app on your phone. And they will even automatically transcribe those voicemails, and you can call them back over the web browser. If they text a message to that number, you'll get that as if it's an email, and if you reply to that text, then it will actually send a text back out. So Google Voice, really cool right there, but add a physical mailing address and a phone number at the bottom of all your web pages. You'll look more legitimate, and the rumor is, the general consensus is, you will rank higher. In the home stretch, we're almost done. Number 9 is to load up your WordPress ping list with a series of URLs. So we're going to go to Google. We're going to type WordPress ping list. Okay, that's WordPress ping WordPress ping list. And the one I'm looking at right now, and I'll link to this, but just in case that things have changed in the future, I found one that says recommended WordPress ping list. And they'll give you this big list of all these things that look like web pages, like rpc.pingomatic.com, rpc.twingly.com, all these different things. And basically what you do is you highlight this list of about, looks like maybe 30 URLs, web addresses, and then I'm going to log into my WordPress backend at robertplank.com/wp-admin. So if you have WordPress, you go to whatever your web address is /wp-admin, and then I will go to settings and then writing. Okay, so settings, writing. And it looks like I already got a pretty long list, but this is so a ping list is where when you go and you make a new post on your blog, WordPress will go out and notify all these different sites saying, hey, this guy Robert Plank just made a new post. And so by having this list in here, the biggest bang for your buck here is that if you make a post on your blog, it should appear in Google results within a few minutes. Whereas back in the dark ages, it might take you 6 months or a year. So we're looking for a WordPress ping list, and then you grab this list of about 30 web addresses, go to settings, writing, find where it says update services, and paste this in. That's an easy way to make it so that when you make a new public post on your WordPress blog, it notifies all of this site. And then finally, number 10, this is something where this actually just came out as we're publishing this podcast, and I'm still in the process of waiting for approval here. There's a thing called Facebook Instant Articles, and I really hope it's still around by the time you're listening to this, if this is years in the future. It's called Facebook Instant Articles. So I installed a plugin called Facebook Instant Articles, and there were instructions on how to get approved. But basically, this formats your website in a certain way where if someone clicks over to a blog post of yours from Facebook, it loads right away. Like the name says, instant articles. They don't have to wait for your website to load and the page to come. Just boom, it suddenly appears on their phone. And so maybe notice this the next time if you ever are browsing Facebook on your phone, on the app, and you click over to some kind of a new article. If it loads like that instantly, and like there's no sidebar or anything, and it just like loads right away, that is Facebook instant articles. And so I guess the name of the game today was that there are all these little hoops that mostly Google wants you to jump through, and then there are some that Facebook wants you to jump through, and then I mean that's the biggest bang for your buck. And for example, in that Google XML sitemaps plugin, there is an area for I think Bing has a new sitemap kind of a service and things like that, and I think Yahoo is trying to catch up, but at the moment Google, and for the last several years, Google has been the biggest bang for your buck. So let me go over these 10 things just to make sure we don't leave you hanging. That way you don't have to go back and remember all this stuff. So first of all, number one, use WordPress and a mobile theme like WP Touch. Number two, all-in-one SEO, Google XML sitemaps. Number three, W3 Total Cache, Minify JavaScript and CSS, Google PageSpeed Insights, tools.pingdom.com. Number four, add tenures on the domain like such as with your registrar at Namecheap. 5, Google Webmaster Tools and Google Analytics. Number 6, get an SSL certificate and make your site 100% forced SSL. 7, legal pages like terms and conditions, earning disclaimer, and a privacy policy, and papertemplate.com has this built in. 8, add a physical mailing address, even if you use a Google Voice number. That's google.com/voice. 9, load up your WordPress ping list. So search WordPress ping list, and then you can grab a list of notification website addresses, I guess, and then you can go to your WordPress backend settings, writing, and paste those in. And then the Facebook Instant Articles plugin, which I'm still kind of getting the hang of. So the point of all this, I know there's all these little shortcuts and hacks. You can go and look at your on-page SEO. You could try to find whatever the latest loophole is. You could go ahead and do all these different things. But these search engines, like Google, they want you to be useful. They want it so if someone's looking for how to tie a tie, they click over to your site, they get their result instantly, and that means that they click and they stay on your page for a while. That means that, and by the way, if you have a video that's a couple minutes long, guess what? They'll stay on your website for a couple minutes. And if your website loads quickly because you installed a caching plugin because you had other useful content, that's all part of the better user experience. And that should be the mantra. And I mean, even if in the future some of these rules change, the whole goal is that you are more useful than the other competing websites. And so, I mean, that's every action you take to rank better in search engines should be to fulfill that goal, to be more helpful than everyone else. And the other thing that we touched on today was that you should consistently put out content. And if you consistently put out something new every couple of days, well, then that means, again, that you are more helpful than everyone else. So let's just leave it there. Let's just not get any crazier than that, but be more helpful than anyone else and have your website deliver a better user experience. And then once you have all this traffic, then you can give people the opportunity to click and buy from you, sign up to your list, all this other stuff, but be helpful first. That's what Google and Facebook and Bing and Yahoo want. I'm Robert Plank from The Robert Plank Show. Please rate and review us at robertplankshow.com/iTunes and check out my blog at robertplank.com. If you have a lot of content that you want to dump into your blog and drip it out, use wpimport.com. It's a quick $7 plugin. I've been using it for over 8 years on my site, so go ahead and claim it, grab it right now, wpimport.com. I'm Robert Plank from Robert